Hey, this is Fred Ottman, Tugboat Typhoon, the Shockmaster, the B-A-double-D, Big Steel Man. And the card is subject to change. Watch it.
Well, sometimes love feels just right. It feels so real. It feels just like a pile driver. Yeah, a pile driver. That's what I'm talking about.
So me personally, I'm actually a lifer. I don't remember a time that I wasn't watching professional wrestling. Even my mom explains it to me as when I was a small child, you know, I would just stop in front of the TV and just sit and watch, and I'd just be quiet and just totally zoned in. So I always been a wrestling fan. And as I get older and even learn more about the business, it's like I continue to fall in love with it for different reasons.
Just it blows my mind. And I'm like tugging on my mom's pants and stuff, and I'm like, Mom. And she's like, yeah, what? And I go, I want to do that. And I'm like pointing at the TV. Well, she looks and she goes, oh, you want to be like Macho Man and wear the cool sunglasses and say, oh yeah, and do the elbow drop? And I go, no, I want to be the guy throwing snakes at people.
Yeah.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong Nick Bull.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We, of course, are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. I am your host, Never Wrong Nick Bull. I'd be remiss if I didn't announce and introduce my tag team partner. We are the co-tag champs of the For Frequency's Sake Network. He is the Wizard CZ. Wiz, how you doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited. We've got another Black and Brave graduate on our hands tonight. Based mostly in Chicago these days. We are joined by Uncle T, Solomon Tupu. How you doing today, Tupu?
Oh, just another day, man. Oh, what the hell is that?
Whoa, how'd you?
You got balloons here.
We got balloons.
What?
How did you do that?
I don't know.
That was
making
cool.
Magic happen today.
What the?
That was right on cue, too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's the end of the podcast. We'll see you guys later. Here it is.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, right. Now we're doing pretty good. Just got a good little legs workout with my Hatekeeper brother Shane Boucher at the BXB dojo, and then went to Wally World, grabbed some groceries, and like I said earlier, spent money that I don't have. So it's just another day, you know.
Very happy to have Solomon Tupu in the studio here on the Card Subject to Change podcast. So I'm going to start it out with the question I ask all of our guests: what got you hooked on pro wrestling? What was that thing that brought you in, that's kept you around, that makes you a fan, that makes you love it? You're obviously a wrestler, so you have some love for it, but what was that? What got you hooked on pro wrestling?
So it's a funny story that my buddies always bust my balls and rib me for, because they're like, they always go like, yeah, you started watching wrestling yesterday or whatever, because I didn't grow up watching wrestling, because I was in a religious household, and my dad, though, he was a big wrestling fan. Like he would watch everything, and my mom hated it. So due to being in a religious household, I was sheltered as a kid and wasn't allowed to do X, Y, and Z. But I would always kind of peek through the door. I remember watching, it was an Umaga match or whatever, something. I was watching my dad watching old Monday Night Raw back in the day, when I was a little kid. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then I have a vague memory of some friends of mine in elementary school or whatever it was, where they had an Umaga action figure and a Jeff Hardy action figure, and they're like, isn't this cool? And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Walked away, no idea what it was. So but it's the funny part is, come around 2012, I have no knowledge of wrestling or nothing, which is, I don't know if that's gonna fucking oh, sorry, I don't know if that's gonna drop my stock or nothing, but 2012 rolls around, I put on Netflix, and there's a Rock documentary. And at the time, like I said, I don't know anything about wrestling. I'm like, oh, The Rock, that's the actor, the Hollywood guy, yeah. And then my mom, she was like, yeah, this looks cool. Let's play it on Netflix. And it was a documentary about like his, like not about his movies or what. Obviously, it's about wrestling. And I'm like, oh, The Rock's a wrestler, WWE, WWF. That's cool. That's really cool. So she sheltered me from it, and then ironically, if that's the right word, she is the one that got me into it because she put on that Rock documentary by accident, and that's the same time around where like the WWE Network came back because uh, I remember the documentary popping up. I'm like, oh, that whole thing was cool. And then at that same time, The Rock came back, and I'm like, oh, that's Rock on TV. We didn't have like live television or whatever, but we had Hulu, and like Raw and SmackDown would come on the day after it was aired. And at that time, it was like Monday and Tuesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday, I'd watch Raw and SmackDown all the time. I'm like, oh, that's The Rock, and he's back, and he's wrestling the CM Punk guy and John Cena. I know John Cena, everybody does. And then I'm like, oh, the Shield. And then I'm like, oh, Ryback's my, at the time, Ryback. I was the biggest Ryback fan in the world at the time, dude. Like even to this point, like even though he says some crazy shit nowadays, I still have that nostalgic aspect of Ryback. I'm like, oh, dude, Ryback's the man, yada yada yada. And then Rusev Miro is the number one person on my list. He's my all time favorite. Nobody's better than Miro. But I'm just on a tangent rambling. But yeah, no. So pretty much what got me into wrestling was that Rock documentary, and then ever since then, it was like 2012, 2013. The network's back, and I'm just this encyclopedia, this library of pro wrestling. Like you can just click to any year, any date, and just everywhere. And I literally, I think I started in like 98 pay-per-views, and I just watched every single pay-per-view back to back within like a few months. I'm like, this is awesome. And then few years later, I tried to join the military. Didn't work out. I have poor vision in my left eye. Uncle Sam said no. And I was like, you know what? I want to be a wrestler. That sounds really cool. And I was like, oh man, where should I go? I saw Heath Slater had a school. I saw Rikishi had a school. I had Lex Luger had a school. But I was like, oh, Seth Rollins has a school. Black and Brave with the Shield. That's so cool. So like 2018, I was in my class where I graduated with uh, names such as like Conan Lycan and WWE NXT superstar Nathan Frazier. And just to drop a name, why not? Like
Sure.
we were in the same class, and those are my buddies for life, brothers forever. And ever since 2018, I just been on this ride, man. Just you know doing the thing as we all are.
So
That was
you
mentioned-
very-
dropped. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was
You mentioned Rusev and Miro, how he's your number one. Talk about what drew you to him and why he's your favorite wrestler. That's interesting. I enjoy his work too, but you never hear people saying that. So
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I've always been hooked on Rusev. Like when Rusev was even like that when he was Alexander Rusev in NXT, I was like, this dude's so cool. Like just because like I think it's because like I'm a bigger dude and he's a bigger dude too, but he's obviously more jacked than I am. But like I was just like, yo, he's like strong, fast, athletic, and actually really funny on the microphone. And like I would see interviews with him backstage, like when they would do the up down down shows. When there's one episode, I think they were playing Madden, and he was playing Madden with AJ, and then he was his mannerisms of him like I think he picked six AJ, and he was like, I'm too fast, I'm too fast. He was just so funny. And then I just got hooked from there. Like his work, I was just the biggest fan of when he had the U.S. title. He was undefeated for like a year. Like he was just like top heel at that time, I think. And with the whole Rusev Day stuff, that's money. I don't know what it was, but I just literally stole half of his movesets, like the wheel kick, the savate kick. I used to do the accolade. Like I just got hooked on Rusev, and then it was released, or he asked for his release. I forgot which one it was, and then he went to AEW with the damn Redeemer, Miro the Redeemer, bro. I was like, oh, this is money, bro. And
Sure.
it was just so sick. I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. All I know is like at the time and still now, Rusev was like a drug that I couldn't get enough of. I just loved it. Love me Miro. Love me some Miro. Big fan.
We've got our friend and fan of the show, Striker, here, and he said that Tupu versus Miro, he would love to see that. I think I would too.
I would too.
How would that match go down? You guys are similar builds. How would that go down? That'd be very interesting. Sign me up.
Yeah, sign me up too. I'm down. I'll find out. He's literally like the top of my list. Like, that's the number one thing that I want to do in pro wrestling is wrestle Miro. Like at the moment, obviously,
Sure.
things change all the time. But right now, for the past few years, like wrestling Miro is number one.
So I wanna drop another name who's on the independent scene that you have some familiarity with, because I've seen a couple of your matches and they are just absolutely hard hitting. Talk about your matches with Manders, good friend of the show here.
Yeah, called Steve. Called Steve Manders, bro. I love wrestling Manders, dude. I've had some of my best matches with him. I've had some of my worst matches with him. You can, if he ever gets on this podcast or whatever, you can ask him about our first ever street fight where it was a train wreck. But no, I recently we had a match in Chicago style, which I consider my home promotion, and it was a banger. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Who cares? Everybody knows it. Will Ospreay was in the back. It was super cool. Like he pulled me aside. He was like, "Mike, that was the coolest. I love that style of big men fighting big men. It was great, bro." Blah 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 blah. I'm like, dude, you're Will Ospreay. That's cool. Thanks, bro. But no, I owe a good chunk of my career to Manders because when I first started, he would have me in his car or ask me to hop in the car, and I would hop in the car all the time. And it's just like a lot of where I am is because of him, and I'll never not say that because he's helped me out a lot. So much love to the old cowpoke, old called Steve.
How cool is that to get back from your match with Manders and have probably one of the most popular wrestlers, one of the most over wrestlers right now in the world being like, "Hey, I like what you did." That had to feel pretty cool.
That's a thing, dude. It's pretty cool, man.
So I want to know, we've talked about you going to Black and Brave, Seth Rollins, Merrick Brave. What was it like going in that first day, that what many have called Hell Day, or a lot of day zero? What was your mindset going in there? And then what was your mindset walking out on day zero after the what we've heard, the rigorous training they put you through, the rigorous tests they put you through?
So what I remember from it, because like I'm getting like Snapchat memories from like 6 years ago today. I was like currently in class, which is cool because I'm like, wow, 6 years, that seems like yesterday. But I remember walking in day one, well, day zero, because the conditioning test is considered day zero. The week after is day one. But like, I remember walking in there and I'm like, at the time it was at the old facility called the Foundation, I think it is, over in Moline or Rock Island, whatever it was. But it was like this half CrossFit gym, and in the corner was the ring. And at the time, it's when Seth was the cover of, I forgot which 2K video game it was, but they had it was like a graffiti art of like Seth, where it's like burn it down. That's where the burn it down thing came from for the video game cover. And they just had a giant, like, huge display of it. Like the entire wall was like a custom thing for it. And then the ring was right there. And then the coaches were around. Some of the grads at the time were around. And I remember walking up. I'm like, oh my God, this is pretty cool. And I did my research on some of my fellow students, and some of them like Nathan Fraser. I saw he had some prior wrestling experience, and I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's probably really good. And then Conan Lycan, I thought like he's a D1 athlete, and he's just big Jack New Yorker. I'm like, oh, this dude's like, he looks kind of mean. Oh, I don't know about this guy. He looks good too. And then like I just walked in, and then I shook everybody's hands, and we clicked from there. And then we all sat down and we did the intros, yada yada. And I remember because we're just introducing ourselves, to everybody, like, and the coaches and all that. And Seth was late, but I remember seeing him on the corner of my eye, him walk in, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Seth Rollins. I'm freaking out. And then, and then luckily that, like, I mean, we're all fans, and I consider us all coworkers at this point, but at the time, like, the fanboy in me, it was like, okay, I'm here to be a wrestler, so I have to, like, get rid of that as fast as possible.
Sure.
Which is hard to do it sometimes because I just marked out over Rusev for like 10 minutes. But like, but I remember he walked in. I'm like, oh, Seth Rollins is here, and he was like, oh, we're gonna kill you guys tonight. Time to get running. I'm like, oh damn. So they definitely put us through the ringer for that. That conditioning test is no joke. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Like, or the second hardest thing I've ever done. But like, I don't know. It's definitely very difficult. And my mindset was like, oh man, well this sucks, but 3 months of this, and then I'll be able to do my thing. So get through it and just have fun. And luckily we had a good time. It was fun and all that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. I've heard stories. The word burpee has been brought up. I hear that word and I just run screaming
Mm.
because not even in the best shape of my life 10 years ago would I have been able to do that, but especially now. Ooh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to mention all the other stuff that that I'm sure they have you do that. Um, yeah, no.
It was a good. It was a lot of burpees, especially in like my class.
So you mentioned the Hate Keepers, uh, Shane Boucher, Jay
Jay
Marston,
Yep.
Jay Marston, the Shug, Shane Hollister. Who am I missing?
Conan.
Conan Lycan, yes. How did the Hate Keepers come about? Talk about that group, how that came about, and how you became a part of it.
So like myself, Conan, Shane, and Jay. Uh, we all kind of like started at CSW together, and it was like 2-3 years ago, and we're all doing our thing for the first few shows, and then one of the bookers came up to me. They're like, "Hey, we want to start a group with you guys. Find a handful of guys, and we'll see what happens." So I was like, "Oh, obvious picks are these guys, the four of us." So it was a no brainer, Like we were literally in the same. We FaceTime each other every single day. We're in group chats all the time. We bust balls. We have fun. Like, it just came about where it was just we're all on the same show all the time. You might as well be at the top in a group, and then we just became the Haykeepers, and we just kind of like ran a roughshot. And then Shug was introduced a little bit later into one of into the group. So and it became the five of us. And it was because like Shug is like love Shug to death. He's like an uncle. Ironically, Uncle T. Yeah, he's like Shug's definitely like an uncle to me, big role model because like I've wrestled him a million times. He's just an encyclopedia for wrestling. He's been around the game for a long time, so he knows what he's doing. So like just having him there just like helped out and even made it even more fun. And yeah, just some 2-3 years later, here we are.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Who's credited with coming up with the name? That's a pretty catchy name for a wrestling stable.
I want to say me. I can't remember because we were like going back and forth with names because originally for the first couple of shows we were the Black and Brave Army, but we were like, we don't want to be those people who are like, yeah, we're Black and Brave, we're better than you, and like we don't that's stupid. So we were like, let's figure out our own thing, and then I'm gonna say me. I came up with the name the Haykeepers. That's
all right,
the
that's
answer.
the answer I want to hear.
Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
I put it in the group chat. I said, "How about the Hate Keepers?" And everybody was like, "You're so right. You're our king, and everything you say is right." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, thanks." So that's how it came about.
You're listening to the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. We are chatting with Uncle T, Solomon Tupu, all things wrestling. And Solomon, what would you say, since you started wrestling until now, what part of you has evolved the most? Is it the psychology part? Is it the in-ring part? What part of your game has evolved the most and gotten you this far?
Definitely my character. For the past few years, I was the Samoan Hellraiser, the Dragon of the Pacific, Solomon Tupu, and it was working. I'm Samoan. Like generic Samoan gimmick. You're Umaga. It was working and it was cool. But then it came to a point where I'm like, they got a faction of Samoans running WWE. They got like if I'm not gonna be a better, I'm not gonna be any better than Jacob Fatu because he's, I can't beat him because he's the man. So like, I was like, I don't know what to do, and I talked to my boys. They're like, well, why don't you? At one point, they're like, why don't you be a Boy Scout? I'm like, no, why would I do that? Because just busting balls, throwing. Because I used to be a Boy Scout back in the day. But like just busting balls, throwing ideas left and right, and then I played around with the ideas like, why don't I just be like a pimp, Godfather, like, because realistically, like, sure, I'm a big brother, a big man, Samoan, and I can play the role of a badass, but like I don't consider myself a badass, like a big monster, because I like to bust balls and have fun with the boys. I like to have a couple drinks and just have a good time and party,
Right.
and I've always been told that make sure your character is you turned up to 11. So just it actually happened at AAW in Chicago. Danny Daniels and Chuck Smooth were like, "Yo, why don't you be a pimp?" And I'm like, it's funny you say that because we're actually playing around with the idea of that, me and my buddies. And then Danny was like, I want to see what it looks like. Get a fur coat and whatever, and make it yourself. And then I put it on. It popped myself and it popped the boys with that doing that. It popped the crowd, and I was like, this kind of feels right. Just me having, because I was just having fun, like I said, being the big Samoan monster was cool and all, but I just didn't want to be Samoan guy number two, Like like I said, Fatu does that gimmick better than I ever could. And so what's the point of trying to compete with him? Because I've always felt like myself, like I reached my glass ceiling and with the whole Dragon of the Pacific thing, and I'm like, how can I get past that? And there's no right answers. It's just like figure it out. So I was like, you know what? Let's put on a fur coat. Let's put on double sunglasses. Let's get some money guns. And then I was like, Uncle T. Oh, that sounds catchy. Sure, why not? Because in the Polynesian culture, even if you're not related, everybody's like uncle. If you're younger, it's cousin, and if
Yep.
they're older, it's uncle or auntie or whatever. Like if you go to Hawaii, you're gonna see two strangers. They're gonna be like, "What's up, aunt? What's up, auntie? Hello, hey, uncle." Yada yada yada. So I'm like, well, that just makes sense. Oh, Uncle T. Solomon Tupu. So it just turned into like me like thinking of things that'll pop me and pop the boys, and I'm like, well, how can I translate this into the ring? And then I just I just threw shit at the wall, see if it stuck, and some things worked and some things didn't, and here we are now, man. Just so I would definitely say the character aspect because I'm a big character wrestler, like so definitely, like I can go in the ring, but I just love characters, because everybody can be a badass, everybody can be the dark brooding character or whatever. But what has wrestling never seen? Like never, I don't think they've ever seen a Samoan that's I don't want to say pimp because I ain't got no hose, but like I don't think
I mean,
anyone's seen a Samoan do what I'm doing,
we've
like.
had a tribal chief. Why not a tribal pimp?
Exactly, man. So that I'm
Solomon, let
just
me ask you, what was the reaction the first time you came out with the fur coat and just the whole Uncle T getup? What was the crowd reaction, and what was your response to it?
so they were kind of confused because it was at like I forgot which AAW show it was at, but it was for the past year I was in a faction. It was me, Conan, Joe Alonzo, and Chuck Smooth were in a faction at AAW, and then we're just like big monsters, whatever. Yeah, but then they're like, we want to see something different. We need a character change. And then I came out with all the gimmicks and the fur coats and all that, and the glasses and whatnot, and like the crowd was like, half of the crowd was like, "What the hell is that?" But the other half was popping like, "That's kind of funny." Like, like they some of them know me behind the stage, so behind the curtain, they're like, "That's funny." Solomon's like being himself. So, and then I was like, "This is actually kind of fun. Like, I'm actually having a really fun and good time with this." Like, I was kind of getting burned out with the Monster Simone stuff, but like, this is actually a lot of fun. So let's just see where this ride takes us. And about like a year and a half, 2 years later, here we are.
That's awesome. I think that is a good place for us to take a quick time out, pay our dues to the network and our sponsors. So I am going to play our commercial break here. We'll come back with Solomon Tupu. But before we get that on the other side of the break, we're going to have our moment of focus with JT Energy. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute.
Football season may be over, but for frequency's sake, still has you covered for all your sporting needs. Tune in every Sunday when the best professional wrestling podcast around, Cards Subject to Change, gets you caught up on everything inside the ropes. They won't miss a count with weekly analysis and interviews. More into auto racing? We've got a double dose for you on the track. Tune in to Fast Money with Rod Villagomez each week and win some money with the quickest bets in all of sports. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your basketball fix? Points in the Paint has you covered with live shows every other week looking at everything in the association. Backed by popular demand, we have the return of The Payoff Pitch, FFSQC's baseball show, covering you on news around the MLB. If you're missing football, don't fret. Mark and Dan still have you covered in the football lounge. Missing Joe Winkle? Probably not, but he's still here talking sports on Educated Ignorance. Football season might be over, but we've still got you covered. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
For frequency's sake is brought to you by Durham Remodeling, serving the Quad City area's remodeling and repair needs since 1973. Clint's Draft House, grab a bite and a pint. 7th Street Moline. Lopez, New York-style pizza served up by the slice or pie, Davenport. Lifted Energy, energy drinks, coffee, donuts, and more. #GetLifted. Atomic Sports Cards and Collectibles. Sports cards and memorabilia, vintage clothing, hats, pennants, and more. Ryan Allison Tattoo. Step into the vibrant world of tattoos with Ryan Allison. And A Cut Above, offering quality custom woodwork designed specifically around our customers.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Card Subject to Change podcast by the fan for the fan. Episode 127, a visit with Uncle T, Solomon Tupu. We've had a good time so far getting to know Solomon. We're going to get to know him a little bit more here in a few minutes. But first, CZ, I think it's time to step back and have a moment of focus with our friend and everyone else's JT Energy.
I do believe you're right.
Well, hello. It's time for a moment of focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy. In the Card Subject to Change podcast, you're lucky enough. You have Uncle T in the house, Solomon Tupu, the man that makes it rain and brings the pain. And if there's one person that can attest to this, let's focus on making change in a positive way. Because nothing will ever change if there is no change. So if you want something and you want a different outcome, make sure that you change something about the way that you show up, the way that that situation is. Because sometimes we just look at things and we just let them remain the same and we don't do anything. So today, think to yourself, what do you want to change? And then tomorrow, or even today, make that first step into helping that change progress. Taking that first step. And let's see what happens in our lives. This has been a moment of focus with the feline phenom,
JT Energy.
JT
That was our good friend.
Always has an interesting way of with the words and putting things, and something he said there stuck out and kind of coincided with what Solomon was talking about before we went to break about how he changed up his character a little bit, went from this Samoan madman now to more like the Samoan pimp. And I got to ask you this because, I mean, it's just been the biggest wrestling storyline in years with the bloodline. What is your take on the bloodline? What do you like about it? What you don't like about it? And where do you see, if you could plug yourself into the bloodline, where would you plug yourself into it?
I love everything that's been going on with the bloodline, honestly. Like I feel like I thought when Jay was taken out and there was kind of like a year without Jay, I was like, it's kind of getting like whatever. But then they kept on like upping the stakes. And then after Roman dropped the title and it's Solo and now the Gorillas of Destiny, that's sick. Like that's cool. Yeah. You know, like I don't know, man. Like everything they're doing right now is really cool. I'm excited to see what they do in the future. And like where I'd insert myself in the bloodline, dude, I'll be driving the bus, man. I'll be driving the party bus. That's where I put myself. You know, like I'm still getting paid, dude, and I'm bumping even less. You know, give me that like assistant to the wise man spot. You know, let's have a good old time.
I like that answer. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, Solomon, we're talking about the WWE, how you'd fit into the bloodline. Let me ask you this. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you had a tryout with the WWE, correct?
Yeah.
I want to hear your story about how that came about and how that went and how you felt afterwards.
So it was, I think it was either the end of 21 or 20. I think it was the end of 21 or 22. It's one of them. So that tryout came by pure luck. Like I'm not gonna say like they reached out to me or there's scouts everywhere left and right. I got that tryout off of pure luck because they had I don't know if y'all remember it, but they had the SummerSlam apply now for a Vegas tryout, SummerSlam, blah 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 blah. Put in your email. So I was like, as probably everybody else did, I was like, why not? I'll throw my name in the hat. Sure. 1 in a million chance. Who knows? About a couple months later, I get an email from like WWE. They're like, "Congratulations, we'd like to have you for a tryout." I'm like, "Oh my god!" So I wasn't ready at the time physically. My cardio was the shit, still is now. Like I was about 3-4 years in, which is super early, and I'm 6 years in now. I'm still super early, but they asked me for the Vegas tryout. I got all my blood work, physical, all that good stuff done, my vaccination cards, all that good stuff. Then I get COVID a week before the Vegas tryout. So I'm like, damn, that sucks. But they're like, don't worry, we'll bring it back in December. So I got a December tryout. I'm like, cool, even more time to prepare. So the December tryout comes around, and I'm preparing as much as I should have been preparing more if I'm being honest. But I prepared what I did. And then I went down there as a 3-day tryout, and it was the most like I said earlier, the conditioning test at Black and Brave was the second hardest thing I've ever done. That tryout is the number one hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like it was like 3-4 conditioning tests put into one, not just like physically but mentally, because it was myself and in my class was like Roxy. I saw her immediately. I go, "You're getting signed." There was a bunch of like football athletes and basketball and baseball, etc. Sports athletes, and a bunch of them got signed. And there's a bunch of other wrestlers in there with me as well. I'm forgetting names, but it was like I think there's 80 of us, and 10-20 of us were wrestlers and the other half was athletes.
Sure.
And I remember the first day was it was so cool because Regal was there, and the first day was like eccentric work, yada yada, and then promos with Regal, which was Regal's the man. I can't say anything bad about him. I can't say enough good stuff about him. Regal's the man. William Regal is an awesome human being. Very soft spoken, but like you can't help but like he draws you in when he talks to you. So that was cool to do promos with him. And then the second day was just rigorous drills and training that is just like I said, it was like 3, 4 conditioning tests into one. And then the third day we had more training and promos and matches, which was really cool in front of like Regal, Samoa Joe, a bunch of other execs, Albert, obviously. Like it was really cool. And some NXT wrestlers like Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser was there. They're awesome human beings. Great dudes. So cool. Great dudes. And there's a bunch of other wrestlers out there too, just helping out. But it was it was definitely the hardest thing I've done in my life was that tryout, and like I took away a good amount of stuff, and I got a phone call like a week later. They're like, unfortunately, yada yada, we're not gonna go with you, but blah 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 whatever. Good luck to you in your future. And obviously, I was bummed out like for like a week, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for a job at that point. Like I would have loved to have a job at that point. Don't get me wrong. I would have been like, sweet, I got to move to Florida. But it was a really cool learning experience, and definitely gave me a different like look on things of like what I do and what to do. And if one in the future comes up, then I'll be more prepared, obviously. So fingers crossed.
That was
What's the biggest thing you took away from that experience and then applied to your wrestling life when you got back from it?
So it's advice Regal gave me because he told me he was like because I was asking him about like promos, and I'm like, at the time I was doing the monster character, and I was like, big bro, whatever, like yelling in Samoan, yelling, yeah, blah blah blah, Solomon Tupu, whatever. And I was like, "What'd you think, Regal?" I was like, "Any advice? Obviously, what can I do better?" He was like, "You started at 100 and you're allowed, and you got our attention immediately." And I was like, "Good." He goes, "It's kind of hard to get past 100 when you start there. So like figure out where you want to put things, because when you start here, you better figure out a good way to get past that because it's really hard to do that." So he was like, "Just tell us a story, take us on a ride." Like like it's just the way that he was explaining things to me. I'm like, "Oh, that just makes sense." So that was definitely like just just pick and choose when you want to do things, kind of thing. So that was the one thing that sticks in my head the most, is what he told me. Just if you're gonna start at 100, it's hard to get past that. So figure out a way to maneuver around that.
Solomon. You mentioned not being ready at that first tryout that you had there. If Shawn Michaels were to pick up the phone, give you a call right now, say, "Hey, we want you to come for another tryout," are you ready now?
I'll be like, "Shawn Michaels, I'm in your backyard, dude." I'm outside the facility right now. Open the door.
Where do you see yourself fitting in better? Since we're talking about your WWE tryout, do you see yourself fitting better in a WWE environment or like an AEW environment if the call were to come?
So that's kind of like a hard question to answer because like I haven't done anything with AEW, and I've done like extra work and tryout and yada yada with WWE. So like I haven't had a dark match. I've never been the Ring of Honor or whatever, Dynamite Collision. I haven't done anything extra work or nothing with AEW yet. So until I do that, like because I'd love to be anywhere. My end goal, like I would love to sign with WWE, but at the end of the day, and I say this to everybody, I just want to make a living off of professional wrestling. Preferably as a wrestler, but as long as I can make a living of it, whether that's like a coach, a producer. I'm too big to be a ref, but I'd take it. The refs make hella money, like like backstage, anything, and that I'm just like making a living off of professional wrestling, where I can say this is what I do and this is how I make money, and I have fun doing it. Then that's where I like to see myself. Like WWE is my end goal, but you never know. Maybe that never happens. Maybe it does happen. Maybe I go to AEW. If I'm lucky enough, maybe I don't. But whichever I go to, it's as long as I'm making that is my sole way of living. That's all I care about.
Absolutely. We're talking about moving into the big leagues. Let's play a little fantasy booking here while I have you. I know, obviously, Miro at the top of your list as far as people you want to get in the ring with. Anyone else? Any other dream matches for you or dream opponents for you to step in the ring with?
So one of the easy answers is obviously Seth, because he's my trainer, and he's number one in the world. So why wouldn't I want to have that match? Another one is also kind of an obvious answer, Nathan Fraser. I would like I've wrestled him before, but we've never had a singles match. It's been in triple threat, and wrestling one of my close buddies in the big leagues, that's awesome. You
Sure.
know, um, there's just so much guys that like Will Ospreay would be crazy cool to wet wrestle. Obviously, I'd have to up my cardio for that one though. But you know,
Maybe just a little bit.
I feel like when you watch Will Ospreay match, you have to have good cardio to watch a match, not only
I get blown up sitting down. You telling me that a wrestling match? Come on.
I'm the same way.
God bless. No, I mentioned him early before, like Gorillas of Destiny, Tamatonga or Tangaloa, like those guys would be sick to get in the ring with those guys. Like that would be sick. There's, everybody on every roster, obviously, but in my head, the main one's Miro. Miro's
Sure.
still number one. My coach, Fraser, the Gorillas of Destiny, Ospreay would be cool. There's it's just an endless list of names, that I'd just be grateful to be in the ring with.
And we're grateful to have you here on the Card Subject to Change podcast. We're chatting with Solomon Tupu. This is the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We're powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Talk about your current run that you're on. If someone was to come out and see a Solomon Tupu match, see you at either Chicago Style Wrestling or AAW, what's their first impression going to be when they see a Solomon match, or what's their impression going to be when they walk away from a Solomon Tupu match?
This is a lot of fake money everywhere. Oh,
he's
man,
he's like Okada with all that fake money coming down. Right?
Except I'm poor and he's rich as shit. I don't know, man. I don't know. I always have fans come up to me. They're like, "Oh, that was a great match. Oh, that was a great match." Yada yada. I mean, my main thing is just they bought the ticket, so anything I can do in my power to make them either cheer or boo,
Sure.
that's it. Obviously, I want to be someone's favorite wrestler leaving the show, and I mean, I probably am some people's go-tos, but until I'm on the list of people talking about all the time, for example, another name, I can't believe I forgot it. He's not in WWE or AEW. He's in TNA. Jake something. I'd pay any amount of money to wrestle Jake. Jake's the man, and that kind of segues into the what you want, what you want people to think of. I want people to think of me on the level of Jake something one day, where they're Jake something's top of the indies, TNA. He's going crazy. He's doing everything. Just on that caliber of performer and wrestler is where I would like to be in the future.
For sure.
Oh shit! Nope. Drop that. That was weird.
What is there any place that you haven't been that you would love to wrestle at?
My bucket list is to wrestle on the West Coast and in Texas. So West Coast Pro would be cool. Just any of the Texas Feds would be cool. East Coast too. I've wrestled on the East Coast here and there, like Philly, Jersey, Florida. But yeah, no, West Coast Pro, man. That's I don't know why, but that just the West California area, that's. I've got some buddies over there. They tell me how cool it is. It's just always been a bucket list thing to just wrestle on the West Coast. I'm slowly breaking into Canada because we're myself, Campbell Myers, SK Bishop, Heather Reckless, and Maggie Lee, and Conan Lycan. We all had a show in Toronto a few weeks ago, Destiny Pro, and that was so much fun. Like they took care of us, they paid us well, they got us rental van covered gas hotels, like great crowd, great locker room. So like slowly breaking into the Canada area, but I'd like to start breaking in more to the West Coast area, and also the
Okay.
South. I love the South. Like I used to live in Tennessee as a kid for like 7 years.
Mhm.
So Tennessee's a second home for me. And I love the South. Like I was gonna move to Nashville, but then COVID hit and I kinda got stuck here. And I dream about moving to Tennessee, but like it's just I got my home base here and maybe I don't know. It's just I forgot what I was talking about. my train of
That's,
thought rambled on a little bit.
I want to ask you. There was I believe you were a part of it. If I'm remembering the pictures correctly, there was a seminar with Jerry Lynn
Hmm.
a few weeks ago at Black and Brave. Talk about some of the seminars that you've been to, who you've gotten advice from, and what, particularly with the Jerry Lynn one, what did you walk away learning from the seminars that you've been a part of?
So the Jerry Lynn seminar was really good. Jerry's the man. He's just a learning tree of endless knowledge. And he gave us some good advice. We had matches. He critiqued them really well. He was like, "I like your confidence," and I never thought about that to myself, that I have good confidence. And he was like, "You have great confidence in the ring. Like you own the ring." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." So I took that away. Like I took that from that seminar. Like confidence is a big factor, which we already knew, but I never thought about it until like
Sure.
actually now. Um, I did a Sammy Callahan seminar. I think it was in December, which was really good. He gave me some great advice and he gave me some critiques, which I appreciated, and some tips. A few years ago, I did an Alex Shelley seminar, which was, it's Alex Shelley. Like, it was just crazy good. He gave us, like, I have a book in my room somewhere with notes from it. But one of the best seminars that I've ever done is a Jimmy Jacobs seminar, which was nothing but promos, obviously. And like the way that Jamie, like, you ask him something and he'll like, like he's running through an entire match or a movie in his head of like, how would I put that? Where would I put that? Would I do that? And then he would give you like an Einstein level answer. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even think about it that way. Because like he gave really good advice that I've always used. Because like when it comes to like giving advice, because the analogy was, I'm making dinner and I'm gonna put food on the table. Now you can eat it, or if you don't want to, you don't have to eat it, and we can just move on. Which is like, if I tell you something, you can take it, great, but you also don't have to take it. If you don't want to, it's no big deal. So I was like, oh, that's a pretty good, cool way to look at things, because he was like, I don't know everything, but I've been around for a long time. Now you can take my advice, and maybe it does something, or if you don't want to, no hard feelings. Like there's other people around that have good advice as well.
For sure.
And Jimmy Jacobs, you're right, has been around the scene for such a long time. He's seen a lot, he knows a lot, and he's able to share that. And I think that's tremendous you tell that story, because so many times you hear people having ego, and there's no ego there. He's, hey, if you want it, take it. If not, no big deal. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And I like the fact you shared that story.
Yeah, it was really cool, just the way that he was just like dissecting everybody's promos. It was really eye opening, because at that point I was like maybe a year in, so just having that knowledge that early is a lot of help.
And having a promo seminar with Jimmy Jacobs, one of my all-time favorite promos is from him from Ring of Honor when it was at Man Up and they did the blood edit. They couldn't put it on the pay-per-view because of the graphic nature of what was going on around him, but the promo he cut was just masterful even back then.
Mm-hmm. No, he's one of the best to ever do it, man.
So
Well,
what does
Solomon? Go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead, CZ.
No. You take this one.
I was going to say, Solomon, where can people see you coming up in the coming weeks and months for wrestling? Where can people follow you? What shows can they see you on?
This
Spoiler, that's
weekend.
exactly what I was going to ask.
Oh, perfect. This weekend I'll be in AAW in Chicago for their upcoming show, which will be a lot of fun. We're doing some pretty cool stuff. I'm doing some cool backstage stuff that people are going to see in the near future whenever they get it started. Next week, I will be in Chicago again for Ego Pro. Robert Anthony. He's running shows now. Ego Pro. They're always super fun. I think the week after that, in 3 weeks, next week, 3 weeks I'll be in St. Louis for WrestleMax. For KLD's promotions, and WrestleMax is always taking care of me. It's always a good old time. St. Louis seems great, always a lot of fun, and just show after show after that.
The road goes on forever, right?
Where can our viewers and listeners find you if they want to follow you on social media?
Oh, Instagram, X, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, Google, at Solomon Tupu. Just type in the name and Uncle T will be there.
Well, Solomon, I want to thank you very much. This has been a fun show. I do hope we get to have you back on because I feel like we just scratched the surface of things we can talk about with you. Any final thoughts to give our listeners?
Wrestling's fun, man. we all do this to escape reality. I go to shows and I have fun with my friends, and then I just forget about all the BS of real life. Just goes away for X amount of time. And people going to shows want to have fun and have a good time. So just spread love and positivity and just have fun with everybody. Hang out with your friends, have a couple drinks. If you don't, have a soda pop. Just have a good old time. You have fun at the show, enjoy the wrestling, enjoy the characters, enjoy each other's time, because you never know, when it's going to be the last time you'll see X person or not. So just have fun, spread love, have a good old time.
You hit the nail on the head there, Solomon. Wrestling is an escape, and thank you for letting us escape with you for the better part of an hour. You had some great stuff to say, and we're glad to have you on here, and very, very pleased to get you booked, and very pleased to have you on the show. You're great, and the door's open anytime you want to come back.
No, I'll be back whenever you want me back.
Hell yeah, we'll talk about that and get you booked in the future. Speaking of bookings, next week we will be talking with Gunner Brave. The week after that, we have our on the road podcast, the Absolute Pre-Show Party podcast, coming from Waterloo, Iowa, with the boys from Absolute Pro Wrestling. Stay tuned to socials for announcements on guests. We have already announced one, and that is the Absolute Pro Wrestling champion, Ethan Everhart. That Sunday, we'll be watching it late, so don't send us your spoilers. But Clash in the Castle is that weekend, so we'll be reviewing that likely that Sunday. But that is going to wrap things up for tonight. This is the Card Subject to Change podcast. We are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook, Country Financial. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week right here on Card Subject to Change.